Hello. Thank you very much to Maureen, all the way from Pretoria, just giving us an overview around the Mind the Gap campaign. Basically, as we say that the clock is ticking in terms of the time that we need to bridge the gap in terms of investment, capacity buildings, amongst others within the campaign. So once again, thank you very much, Maureen, for that intervention. But for all those online and those that are here, you are most welcome to pose any questions or any comments you may have in respect of the presentation that has been made. Are there any questions? I'll start with the colleagues that are in the auditorium today. Any questions? It would appear that all of us in the auditorium were satisfied with the presentation. Just checking if amongst the colleagues that are online, if anybody would like to make any comments or pose any questions to Maureen following that particular elaboration with regard to the Mind the Gap campaign. You'd like to ask a question? Kindly introduce yourself and then you can pose your question.
My name is Sakinam Kavel from Mozambique. I represent, I'm coordinator a big movement of rural women farmers, but also member of WFO, World Farmers Organization. My question is how we can integrate that campaign, because we really have a serious problem about water in Mozambique, in the rural area. We still have a huge number of people, of women and farmers that they don't have water even to drink, even for farming. So how can we do to join a campaign so we can find a way to ask for support for our people? Thank you.
I hope she...
Thank you very much. Maureen, if you can hear me, would you like to take on that question coming from our colleague from Mozambique? Thank you very much to you, Maureen, for responding to that question. And indeed, we'll take your details so that you can be included in the database amongst the stakeholders that are going to be involved in this particular campaign. I would like to recognize our next intervener. Just introduce yourself again so that we know who you are. Thank you very much. You're most welcome.
Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful campaign. My name is Damaris Uja. I work with Women Environmental Program. I'm from Nigeria. So I want to know if you have people who are in different countries to coordinate this campaign, or you just coordinate it at the African level.
Thank you very much once again. I think the question is very clear that is there any opportunity for those that are in the different countries to be part and parcel of this campaign, so that in all states we've got those that would like to be active to be an integral part of this particular process. Maureen, would you like to respond to that particular aspect? Very much to you, Maureen, for that response. Are there any other questions, any comments before we can move to the next stage of the program? I take it that there's no more comments or questions, so would like to move to the next segment.
Hello, Remy. We've got a panelist online who'd like to make a contribution.
Indeed, they can take up the floor.
Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you once again, Sarin, for that intervention. That's Sarin, Executive Secretary for ANU, also giving us a civil society perspective. We are then going to move to our next presenter, who is Farai Tunduma from UNICEF, and she's going to make a presentation in the auditorium. Farai. She was here. Yes, she's supposed to make it. Just 1 second, we'll just try to sort out a technical hitch. We were hoping that Farai would be here to make her presentation. She's representing UNICEF this afternoon. Perhaps we'll just give her a moment to see if she can pitch up for the presentation. Our apologies. It would appear we have lost Farai this afternoon. Just want to refer once again to Maureen. Can we therefore proceed and maybe do a wrap-up around the issues that have been discussed? Thank you very much. Yes, Farah has just arrived, so hopefully we can be on with the presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We are now going to have a brief presentation from Farai Tunduma from UNICEF. She is an expert on water and climate, and again also focusing on the key issues relating to our campaign and some of the technicalities, because UNICEF, as you know, is one of our in this particular exercise. So allow me to invite to the podium Farai. She will not make a presentation per se, she will just give a very brief talk around the issues. So thank you very much for coming, and indeed you are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Remy, for sharing the podium with me. And then thank you very much, colleagues, for really taking your time to listen to some of our inputs around this particular topic, where we are really saying how do we close the gap that we have in terms of financing for our sector and really achieving the commitments of the high-level panel. So I think firstly, it's really important that we recognize that we really need to more than double our efforts, particularly for water security and for sanitation services. And I must say, having been in a lot of the discussions that we've seen at COP, this issue of water security and sanitation has been a particularly silent one, which really talks to the level of commitment that we need to put in this topic, given, of course, the high numbers of communities that are not served, but even more so that are further threatened by climate change, where even some of the SDG 6 work that we have achieved so far can actually be lost. So how can we work together for us to close this gap? I think firstly, we need to really look at how we can leverage the high-level political support that we have received. We have seen governments, for example, such as the Dutch government really coming through in support. We have also seen our very own heads of states on the continent also coming through with support. But we need to turn and transform this support and influence so that it really pushes the agenda for water security and sanitation. And we also have water security and sanitation coming through high on the adaptation conversations that we have seen within this conference, coming through on the COP processes that we have also seen, and some of the resultant resolutions that are coming from platforms such as COP, financing mechanisms, such as Green Climate Fund, adaptation, and so on, because that is what will change the game and really close the gap for us. We at UNICEF have actually committed to shifting our programs all to climate resilient. So really focusing on climate resilient water, sanitation, and hygiene. And because we cover most of the countries within the continent, I think it's really critical that with government and partners, we really work together so that not only are we transforming UNICEF programs, but we are also getting the ripple benefits of that even on the government programs where larger investments are actually coming through. So really that strong partnership with governments so that we also shift the sector so that we start seeing climate resilience. And this can be achieved by using the 5 accelerators for the SDGs. So optimizing financing. How do we use the existing financing that we have to leverage further resources to close the gap? How do we improve our data and information so that we are measuring progress? We are really showing the gaps that are there and channeling resources where they are needed. What are some of the capacity gaps, human and institutional, that we can work together at closing so that not only are we able to spend resources, but we are able to attract and to retain resources within the sector for us to have maximum benefit. Technology, innovation. What is missing? So more than 60% of our water resources are groundwater. Are we, for example, using technology to really get to these water resources? Are we mining them effectively without causing damage, even in the context of climate change? And then lastly, around governance. Are we putting in place the governance systems, the mechanisms that allow others to work with us so that our systems have the integrity needed for us to retain resources within the sector? As UNICEF, you will also know we work with you at a local level, community level. We escalate issues to national level, and again, we are there at global platforms. How do we work together to pass messages from communities on the ground to national level to global level? And the UN Water Conference next year is a very classic example of an opportunity that we have to work together as a continent for us to close the gap. I think lastly, just remembering that we are at COP, it is really key for our countries to recognize that we have such high exposures of people and communities to climate risks, and we also have low access figures. So I think it's really important that we are here today, that we influence all the going-ons, particularly here at COP, so that this is also elevated, and that is surely a key way of us closing the gap. I think, Remy, I will hand over to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Farai, for that brief presentation. I think it is very clear that UNICEF is one of those many partners that are playing a pivotal role in this particular exercise. At this juncture, I just want to establish if there is anybody who would like to make any comments or still has any questions to UNICEF and any other earlier presenters before we can do a wrap-up. Yes, Hamid, you can make an intervention.
Thank you so much for support. And just a clarification. I mean, now we are heading to UN Water Action Decade 2023. So how you rally behind this panel to ensure that the message and recommendation has been supported at that level as the UN? Yes, now we are heading to UN Water Action Decade, March 2023. As the UN, you are part of the UN, so how are you going to rally behind this panel to ensure that their message and their program and their also roadmap has been endorsed? Thank you.
Yes, I think that's a really, really good question. So we already have existing mechanisms in the countries. We have our cooperation with ministries of water, ministries of finance, where we are often working together with the SWA to really escalate local issues up to national level. We also have within the country offices also UNICEF teams that are working with WASH closely with government as well as with the rest of the sector. So really working through our joint sector review process as an example to really say what is the key message from this particular country that would like to escalate to the global level. So that is also one of the mechanisms that we can already use that exists. We also have various coalitions like UN Water, for example, where all the UN agencies working on water are also working together to pull the narrative coming from the different countries. So there is a whole country process that is going to be unveiled. I think that process has already started through the resident coordinators' offices, so that the water conversations within your countries are also escalated to a global level. I hope that gives you some snippets of the upcoming agenda. And I think it's really important that as a sector, you also have key messages that you are giving, particularly this season where we are going into our joint sector review and reviewing our performance, our gaps, and really picking those key messages to take to the UN Water Conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Farai, for those interventions. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. I would like to try and conclude this very, very important session. On that note, I just want to invite Maureen once again just to give us some of our parting comments before we can do a quick wrap-up in view of the time that we have. Maureen, are you able to just come in and give us some parting comments? Thank you very much, Maureen, for those comments. I would just like to conclude this session. Firstly, just recognizing all the colleagues that have contributed, the panelists that were online, and the panelists that were here. Also, just appreciating the role that has been played by Senegal. They've been leading this process in a very, very diligent manner. Also, from Aouda Nepat, I would also like to thank Amit for contributing to this panel. And I think the issues are very clear, indeed very much succinct. Clearly, we are going to have this campaign that is going to run on the Mind the Gap. Maureen is going to lead this particular campaign from GWP Africa, and we'll all be supporting her. But I think it is important also to recognize that this is a task that involves a lot of partners in our network, and we look forward to their cooperation as we move forward, particularly as we try to bridge the gap, and also as we move towards the main conference on water in 2023 in March next year. So on that note, thank you very much to everybody for participating and also for your presence. We really look forward to your cooperation, and we indeed hope that a lot more partners are going to come on board so that we can bridge the gap. Indeed, the clock is ticking. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Mundo obrigado.
So I have to use my two hands. Hein? C'est bon, oui, c'est bon. Non, ça va, je pense. Can you hear me? Good. Good afternoon. Excellency, the Commissioner for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Belhussein Mohammed, Madam Professor Amania Sharif, Vice President of the Pan-African University Council, dear ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, good afternoon again. So it's so nice to attend the COP27 in this wonderful region of the world also. So I think we are in the center of a big event, and there is too much information, too much ideas, and we have, we have to compile everything, and we have to go with one direction. So the direction to adopt quickly all the resolutions from the different meetings, from the different assemblies, and from the different also events. So we need quickly also to tackle the burning issues of climate change. But we need people with strong capacities who will be able to understand the emergency and will be able also to contribute to the efficient implementation of all COP27 resolutions. So as a Pan-African University and as an institute for water, energy, sciences, including climate change, our mandate is to build the capacities of youth Africans, and our mandate is to offer world-class training to African youth. So we started in 2014. We are located at the University of Tlemcen in Algeria. We have some other institutes in Kenya, Nigeria, Cameroon for other fields of expertise. It's one university that was decided by the head of state in 2010. So we onboarded our first student in 2014, and today we are preparing the 8th cohort with something very specific. So we are launching this year the climate change MSc for the first time, and we onboarded 25 students with more than 20 African countries representatives. The next batch of students will arrive in the beginning of January, and we are expecting to onboard 30 students with some new also African countries who will be represented at the Pan-African University. So we started by MSc in energy and MSc in water. We graduated more than 300, and we reached the employability rate of 80%. So how we reach this employability rate? We are following some innovative process in terms of curricula building today. So we are different from some other universities because we are focusing more on the real need of the private and the public sectors, and on the real needs also of the entrepreneurial students. So I will go during my presentation to all this detail, and I will share with you how we succeeded to build a regional curricula in climate change. So thank you and welcome again to my presentations. In terms of goals and objectives of these studies, I would like just to limit myself to three goals. The first one is to develop and implement of a new continental mass. No, I'm sorry. I have to, yes. So I need to do this exercise and I need to use my two hands. So just to make, okay. To undertake, to under to undertake a market and needs assessment by identifying main skills and knowledge required, potential employment sectors, career paths for master's graduates in climate change, and of course to develop at least 3 or 4 potential program concept options for proposed curricula, and of course at the end we will come with one concept. So the general approach and the methodology. We started the process by evaluating the market and the need analysis. The second, so we met the experts from the public, from the private sector, from NGOs, EGOs, and some other stakeholders, and we discussed what is needed today for climate change. What is the most looked profile also in climate change? So later we tried to develop academically the curricula, some courses with some contents, and we proceeded with the first validation with African Union bodies. At the end, this is something original at the Pan-African University, so we have the accreditation from the host universities in the case of our institute. So it was the National Ministry of Higher Education of Algeria. The full process was developed with the support of GIZ, the German partner, Paradigms, CDI, the African Climate and Development Initiative, and of course the University of Tlemcen with double focus on Agenda 2063, its aspirations, but also the SDGs 2, 3, 4, 7, 11, and 13. So, in terms of market and need assessment, we started by reviewing the key policies, the studies and strategic reviews. We followed this study by a mapping of employers and relevant job profiles in climate change today. At the continental level, we reviewed the existing African master programs relating to climate change, and of course, so how we proceeded with key informant interviews and survey questionnaires. So more than 300 interviews have been organized. At the end, we identified the potential program concept options. So what we learned from the different interviews and from the different surveys regarding the climate change education today in Africa. So 6 findings or 6 dimensions. The first one, multi-level institutional priorities of curricula owners. The second, strategic priorities for continental agenda. The third, envision graduate career path and hence exit level outcome. Disciplinary focus skills and knowledge needs. The 5-dimension curriculum delivery options and pedagogy. And the 6th-dimension business model feasibility and financial sustainability. So in terms of multi-level institutional priorities of the curricula, that the result from our investigations at the continental level. So there is 46 master degrees, the total. Among the 46, so there is 26 who are offered in the southern part of the continent, followed by 10 in the eastern part, but in north only 1, and in the west of course 8, and nothing in the center of Africa. So in terms of disciplinary focus, because it's extremely important also to understand the climate change. The climate change so is a transdisciplinary field which need to be taken seriously in consideration. So most of experts and most of stakeholders in climate change are not originally coming from background in climate change. So maybe from water, from energy, from law, from, okay. So that is also another important criteria when you are developing your curricula. So in terms of transdisciplinary, 16 masters with the majority of focus on climate change in the context of specific discipline or application, such as climate change and law or climate change education, with 22 multidisciplinary. So what we can learn from this first study, that we have to develop a master in climate change with a focus on transdisciplinary, and the strong region in Africa who are offering this kind of training is in the southern. So we have to harmonize. This is another role of the Pan-African University, is to harmonize the higher education in the continent. So, and to facilitate the exchange of the good practices between the region and another. So, little bit too difficult with two. Yes, so coming to the strategic priorities for continental agenda. So, we summarize the national priorities related to education on climate change by identifying also the African nationally determined contributions. So, strong direct relevance. We have 17 training offered with moderate or sector-specific relevance 20, and with indirect relevance 27. So in terms of strong direct relevance, the 17th nationally determined contributions directly call for university-level education and curricula to address climate change, including 3 of them in North African countries. So example priorities such as mainstreaming of climate change into education curricula, mainstreaming climate change education for sustainable development, and train teachers on climate change adaptation teaching at tertiary levels of education. In terms of moderate or sector-specific relevance, so for sector-specific relevance, training activities and capacities building to integrate climate change into well-established disciplines. For example, capacity for climate change adaptation, capacity in agriculture, water, human health, energy, gender, infrastructure, environment, biodiversity, or tourism. So, in terms of review of key policy studies and strategic review, the analysis of report focused on teaching climate change in higher education, notably Southern African Regional Universities Association, SARUA, Climate Change Contents Mapping Study, the Future Climate for Africa Scientific Capacity Development Study findings, and scoping studies for the new Climate Resilience Framework for the United Kingdom's Department for International Development, DFID, and the Canadian International Development Research Centers. So the list review summary: general lack of institutional capacities for climate change, as well as for research to advance climate change knowledge in the region. Knowledge gaps with, within the agriculture, food security, natural resources management, health and energy priority areas, systemic gaps in the digitized baseline and time series data. Gaps in social research, cultural and behavioral change, like gender, community participation, contextualized and localized research, indigenous knowledge systems. Need to transcend disciplinary boundaries and be versed in multiple forms of knowledge. Need to bridge gap between researchers and decision makers. Traditional academic incentives and organizational barriers often work against investment in transdisciplinary skills, and mismatch between the demands of the labor market and the practical skill set of graduates. So we need for graduates who can advance a response to climate change in diverse sectors including agriculture, forestry and fisheries, biodiversity and ecosystems, energy, technology and infrastructures, water and health, act as solution brokers who understand the cross-cutting links between climate change and other issues, support high-level government workers and professionals on technical issues, as well as to support practical and non-specialized administrative communication and management tasks. Understand climate change implications on poverty, social development and macroeconomic aspects. So, in summary, to strategic priorities for continental agenda, the climate change knowledge and skills are needed across a range of sectors and employers, ranging from local and international NGOs, international development agencies, government agencies, academia and private sector consultancies. The specific skills and knowledge needs identified included technical skills such as ICT skills and STEM, science, technology, education, engineering, mathematics, professional capacities for highly collaborative and cross-sectoral field negotiations, working as a team, facilitation, management of iterative process, the ability to communicate and collaborate outside of their sectors. Those skills should be developed during the training of the student, during the MSc offering. So need for knowledge on international politics of climate change. This is extremely important. So for working or for studying in climate change, you need to be very familiar also with the international politics of climate change, international negotiations, national mechanism and commitment. So in terms of envisioned graduate career path and hence exit level outcomes, so that's what we learned from our study. By categories, we identified 5 sectors or 5 categories: research and academia, project management, policy institutional management, skilled technical experts or specialists, sectoral experts, advisor or knowledge specialist. So for each category, we investigated the primary purpose, the example job titles, the thematic area, the balance of breadth to depth, and of course the main employers. So the curricula need to respond to the 5 categories and need to have the student or the graduates also to be employed in those 5 sectors. So in terms of, just to allow you to follow, okay. So the curriculum must address the dual considerations of employability and impact of graduates. In terms of disciplinary focus skills and knowledge needs, so wide recognition of the value of generalists within area of specialization or implementable skill sets. A mix of transdisciplinary skills to work across knowledge boundaries and diverse stakeholders. Fundamental workspace skills such as leadership and communication. Most informant agreed on the need for strong foundation course during the first year of education, and of course the critical skills to be developed like communication skills, research and data analysis, project management, applied understanding, interconnection of climate change topics, and other miscellaneous skills like networking and partnering. So regarding the curricular delivery options and pedagogy, the climate change need to follow very specific also pedagogy, which is different from other sciences. So the proposed curricula is like to offer students a common foundation basis with the option to follow one of several elective streams. It's transdisciplinary field, so we should not close the things to students. So we should offer many elective courses. Okay, so we are also at the level of the continent, and the priorities are very different from member state to another. That's why we should open for students. So also how we need to ensure the opportunity for innovative delivery models like a blended and online models is increasingly feasible but must be supported with adequate effort and resources. And of course, the model of short-term lectures that we are following at the Pan-African University that can provide an opportunity to invite high-profile guest lecturers to add value to the program. So in terms of business model, the institutional collaborations and partnership will be critical to support placements of students and graduates into exchange program, internship and employment, to share the curricular content, collaborative research projects, and the institutional profile, reputation and visibility of curricula. The opportunity for fundraising supplemental income. So the climate change, I was the finance day and I learned that many institutions are targeting also to finance the climate change and the training. So this is also an opportunity for fundraising, developing small tailored training courses, establishing a hub of expertise, skilled associate researchers, graduate to generate funding through targeted research for research-led consulting. And at the end, sustainability of delivery model. This is also important. So in terms of going to the conclusion, we succeeded after investigating the market of climate change training in Africa. So there is three concept options. First is to generalize climate change and sustainable development. The second, climate change practitioner and the knowledge broker thematic specialist. And the third is the climate change practitioner with policy or climate information major. So our institute decided more for the second option. So with this decision, we succeeded to show clearly the need for climate change knowledge brokers by facilitating decisions in science, policy, business, society, and access, moves towards achieving the goals of Agenda 2063, a strong policy orientation. POES already has developed this strong knowledge in policy field during the establishment of energy and water masters, and in his reputation of POES, POES as a hub of climate data and information that support decision making in North Africa. So trained professionals working in political, government and other development institutions blend general skills and knowledge areas with area of niche specializations. Academic masters is a pathway also for PhD level studies, and element of professional masters needed for career path tested model in place at POES. POES launched the first MSc training, so 25 students are on board in engineering track, which is activated, and the internship and masters are planned during the second quarter of 2023. So POES is the fourth institute of the Pan-African University also, which is offering scholarship program to African youth. So the stipend is 588 USD per month, and with free accommodation and open access to other services offered by the Algerian government of POES. And for research, the students can get up to $3,000 for ensuring their mobility, for ensuring the small equipment and data collection. So the MSc is accredited by the Algerian Ministry of Higher Education, is 120 European credit, and the next batch of students will arrive in January 23, and the selection process is ongoing, so 30 students will come also to join the Pan-African University very soon. So thank you Thank you for your attention. Good. So maybe any question? Yes. We need probably the mic. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
There we go. Good evening. My name is Margaret Molefe. I'm from the National Youth Development Agency in South Africa. And I want to say that I was quite excited to hear about the success stories from the Pan-African University. And I was just telling my colleague here that as soon as we get back to South Africa, we need to visit our research chair that's responsible for climate change and hear what are the curriculum development strategies in place for South Africa. And I think over and beyond that, I just want to say that we need institutional collaborations and partnerships across the whole of Africa. I think just through this courses that you offer, we'd be able to create and disseminate knowledge across the whole of Africa. And I think that that will be a big win in us creating the knowledge ourselves and responding to climate change. So I'm quite excited, and I hope that with the homework that we're going to do back home, we'll then try to engage with the Pan-African University on how South Africa can potentially also partner so that we get young people from South Africa to also get qualifications in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you. The people from South Africa will be very welcome to apply during the next call for scholarships. And there is strong cooperation with some South African institutions like University of Cape Town. So we developed in one of the slides, so we developed the Master of Climate Change with ACDI. That you know perfectly, so they are brilliant in climate change, and they have also a big network in southern part of Africa. So it's our pleasure. Other question? Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Karabo Mohale. I'm also from South Africa. I think my comment is more on expanding the program. I mean, when you're speaking about very low numbers, and I think my interest in the expansion is more of saying there is a need for this program to be en masse so that you have more young people participating in climate action, because it's a very important topic. And as you were mentioning, you know, it's actually multidisciplinary, so it's not just one way and us focusing on one singular point, but really more of it being broad and touching on different spheres of our lives. You know, our day-to-day lived experiences, our material conditions are actually determined by climate change more they are determined by our own ingenuity, for example. So I think my question was more on the long-term plan for expansion and ensuring that all corners, I mean, when you're speaking about the numbers, you've got a few in the north of America, the north of Africa, and, you know, a couple scattered across the different regions in Africa. So it's more on the long-term plan to expand the program. Thank you.
So thank you for your question. The Pan-African University is different from the other African universities. The Pan-African University is trying to identify the best practices, to harmonize and to share and to reduce the gap between the different regions, between the different African countries, at least to put the higher education at the same level and level which is also very, very competitive with the other continents. So in terms of student numbers, we are African Union institutions, so we are taking care of the geographical quota distribution, we are taking care of the gender balance, we are taking care of some criteria. So the number of students could not be 100,000, for example, like some universities in Africa. So we are starting by taking the few students from each country and to create this Pan-African also environment. So what you are asking should be the mission of our graduate and the mission of our student from one side. From another side, we have the Pan-African virtual Pan-African University, which will participate in the future to disseminate the knowledge to the others. So that's the vision of the Pan-African University today.
Maybe Professor Ega, since I have the mic, maybe one question that I also have. So have been involved a bit in the design of the program. I think in the certain point, it was the issues of having some component of the program online for advanced trainers. So some part, what is the operational and delivery mode? And maybe in terms of also providing more income to the Pan-African Virtual University, will it be possible to have some module of the program which could be offered online, which will address also the request not only for students but also for advanced people working in ministry and so on and so forth. So a part, some module and component of the program which is not the full master, which could be, let's say, offer as advanced training program online, which will improve more or less the access. Are there some thinking? I think it was in the design, but at the final stage, maybe if these aspects are still part of the program.
Yeah, sure, it was in one of the slides. So we are developing the curricula based on sharing also a process with some other universities, and by using also we learned from this experience during the COVID-19, and the people who took that the online training is difficult, so we demonstrated that it's not so difficult, and we can benefit from this experience also during the COVID-19. So we have some elective courses, some specialty courses that will be developed also for remote teaching and for remote learning. And we have some other experience in the frame of other projects like transforming energy access, where we work together, Dr. Tombu, and we developed also some energy courses or some online energy courses. And we are engaged in another also project for African School of Irrigation, where the training will be also provided totally online. So the infrastructures are there. Yeah. Yes, excellent.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Zerga, for your presentation. My question was simple. How many nationalities in this cohort of 25 which are enrolled in this climate change training?
Good. So from the inception, since I'm sorry, I'm professor, and it's a little bit difficult, to provide a course in such conditions with a lot of noise. So this is really hard exercise for any professor. Good. So since the inception of the Pan-African University Institute of Water, Energy and Sciences, including climate change, we reached 41 nationalities.
Okay,
with all
I was asking.
But the 25, the 25, so we have 19 nationalities 19. In this. 19, yes, 19 nationalities.
Yeah, if I may, just. I am the Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology, so this institute is under, as he said, the Pan-African University. Pan-African University has 10 years age now. It has trained more than 2,000 masters in different areas in 4 countries, Kenya, Nigeria, Algeria, and Cameroon, in different specialties, as he said. They have trained also 500 PhDs in different areas. And the number of nationalities globally is 51, meaning this is really a Pan-African. The word Pan-African University is not just like a fashionable word. No, it's true. They are training people from everywhere. And the beauty of the thing is that they are not just training just technical aspects. They are also training on human rights. In the beginning, for year 1, they have human rights. They have language training. Those who speak French will be speaking English at the end of their training. Those who are speaking English will be mastering French because they are trained in 2 languages. In many places, you know, the teachers can teach in French or in English. It's to the student to follow and take advantage of that one. They are also having lessons of Pan-Africanism and history of Pan-Africanism. It is very important. And above all this, when you bring together people from different countries to live in a campus for 3 years, 4 years, 6 years, you are creating the best conducive spirit for peace building. It goes beyond the training. It's not in the curriculum, but if I happen to know you for 5 years, to live with you, to taste your food, taste your culture, and you tasting mine, then we become really the peace builders of the future. So you young people, if you enroll in the Pan-African University, you become really the peace builders because next year, I mean, you are the next generation of leaders in our countries. Maybe you will be the Prime Minister of South Africa, she will be the Minister of Finance of Togo, and the other one of Cameroon, and you will be really peace builders. So that's why we should cherish this project. It has still some fragile elements in it, but we are trying to overcome them, and we are counting mainly on our youth in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you. So we learned this morning from one of our graduates, Arnold Kichumba. He spent 2 years in Nigeria, so he was very bright as he was the initiator of Entrepreneurship Student Club. And he informed me this morning that he is at the Executive Office of the President, the First Lady in Kenya. Good. Another question? Good. Yeah.
May
Yes,
I add a
exactly.
comment? I add that above all, the advantages mentioned by the commissioner and the success story you illustrated for us, Pan-African University is a scholarship university. We selected the elite of African youth without costing them any financial cost. It's a scholarship university. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Good. So thank you for attending our presentation, and let's keep in touch. Okay, we will share with you our emails. Thank you, Excellency, so for coming. Thank you.
Hello, hey test, hey test.
One slide. Okay, yes. Can we have seconds? تعال تعال شكرا. Good. Huh? صح.
So in a little while, I think. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Okay. So I'd like to just wish everybody good evening. My name is Christelle Pratt. I'm the Assistant Secretary General for the Organisation of African, Caribbean and Pacific States, the OACPS. We have a membership of 79 member states, accounting for around 1.3 billion of the world's population. Our member states hail from Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. We have 47 member states from Africa. We have 16 member states from the Caribbean, and we have 15 member states from the Pacific region. Of those member states, 38 of our member states are small island developing states, and a large part of our membership is also least developed countries and landlocked developing countries. I think one of the key things about the OACPS is that we are all vulnerable countries, and we are all developing countries, and so we're the largest organisation, international organisation from the Global South, for the Global South, of the Global South, and I think it's something that we should really keep in mind and keep front of mind as we come to these sorts of occasions, and it gives us such scope to be able to act together, influence and impact some of these processes. But I would like to welcome the participants to this joint side event, to the African Pavilion, and to invite our panelists and to wish you well this evening, and to thank you for agreeing to participate in this side event. And so the theme for the side event is capacity building and innovation for youth as catalysts for the implementation of COP27 resolutions, which we trust demonstrates the commitment of the OACPS and our partners, the Pan-African University, and Youngo. Did I pronounce that right? Youngo, fantastic name, to build the capacity of youth of the Global South and promote innovative solutions to addressing the global climate crisis that afflicts and impacts us all. We trust that the event gives space and time to listen to youth leaders, with youth making up 60% and approximately 20% apiece of our populations in Africa, the Caribbean and Pacific regions respectively. And so we cannot and must not ignore their important role in every aspect of how we address the current global challenges that affect us at all levels, if we are to turn the tide on the most worrying metrics and trends on climate change, on biodiversity loss and ocean degradation, which are all inextricably linked. Our actions will almost certainly determine the world that our young peoples and their children will need to live in. We need to ensure that it enables them to live free and worthwhile lives. And for this, they will, with their short-lived experiences, but with their innovation, their initiative and intelligence, they do hold the key to many of the answers we need to reach to adapt and mitigate these crises. And so I would like, before we turn to the panelists and have our conversation, to invite Professor Abdellatif Zerga, who's the director of the Pan-African University Institute of Water and Energy Sciences, to deliver the keynote remarks for this event. You have the floor, Professor Zerga.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the good pronunciation of my name. I know it's sometimes not easy, but I'm fascinated how you pronunciate it very well, my name. So it's my great pleasure as director of the Pan-African University Institute of Water and Energy Sciences, including climate change, to welcome colleagues and partners to this important event that we decided for a long time ago with OICPS and also with Yongo. Before giving my welcome remarks, I would like also to recognize the attendance of His Excellency, the Commissioner for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation from African Union to this event. So Professor Belhussein Mohammed, welcome. Thank you. Dear colleagues, I know it's 7 p.m., so it's too late for some of people, but let's continue to work. You know, this opportunity is given to us, and we will not get it every day. So we started by initiating this association between OICPS and Yongo POES, where we heard that 3 of us, we are playing to the same slot. So we say, why not to make the event or to design the event as joint event and to come the 3, because we are focusing all of us on youth, which is the real potential today in the continent and abroad in the Pacific region and also in Caribbean region. So in addition to that, we are talking about the climate change, and the climate change, there is no frontiers, no borders, and is a transdisciplinary also field. So we decided also to invite for this event our friend Dr. Eric Tambo from United Nations University in Bonn, who know very well because he was before the head of research unit at POES, and of course Dr. Linus Mofor from UNICA. So 5 institutions, and of course just on screen my colleague Dr. Dib Amazir from Algeria, who is the head of our entrepreneurship, employability and cooperation with private sector. Yeah. So good evening, Ames. So once again, we welcome all to, of course, the Professor Aman El-Sharif, the Vice President also of the Power Council, who is joining us. So the idea behind this event is to see the different visions of the main stakeholders in climate change today, and how they can see the role of the innovation accelerators in tackling the burning issues of climate change in the continent, and in supporting the fast implementation also of different agendas and the different policies. So in climate change, there is too many debate this week and the next week, and if we are associating this debate also to the issue or to the innovation process, we know that we are well advanced in the continent today. Some countries are really at the international level, and we can see this synergy between the progress in climate change and synergy also in the innovation. So that's the idea behind. And honestly, I will also share with you that today there is some other opportunities, some financial opportunities in innovation that can also benefit for the good progress of climate change. Thank you. So once again, welcome, marhaban, as we say in my home country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Zerga, for those introductory remarks and for, I think, really highlighting the opportunities of research and innovation. And in fact, I think as you were speaking, it occurred to me that, you know, we should really be looking at opportunities between our various research institutions in Africa, between, you know, the various institutions on the African continent, but then also with the Caribbean and the Pacific research institutions and universities. And so we should start to think about synergies and relationships with different stakeholders at different levels and so on, and to keep front and center the importance of that large population of ours that we undervalue and underestimate, which is our youth. So I'm going to now move to the very first round of questions, and would just like each of the panelists to, there'll be 2 sets of questions, but 3 questions, so the second part will have 2. And so for the first question, just to, if you could limit your responses to 2 minutes, and we'll get some institutional perspectives from the United Nations University in Bonn, as well as the United Nations Economic Commission of Africa. And then we'll move to the youth perspectives from our regions, Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. And so my first question, and it's the same question to each of you, is what does the organisation you represent do in relation to climate action? Nice, simple question, but probably a very long answer, crunched down into 2 minutes. And so if I could just take the institutional perspectives first, and direct this to Dr. Eric Tambo of the United Nations University in Bonn, and then to Dr. Linus Morfer of UNECA. And then we'll move to the youth perspectives and hear from our youth leaders. And I'll introduce them in a moment. So to Dr. Tambo.
Many thanks for the opportunities to Professor Zerga to convening us to this important meeting, so to share a bit our perspective of what we are doing at the institutional level to support youth on innovation and climate action. So the United Nations University has a particular profile that it's a mix between the universities and development actors working toward impact. And when we are talking on working toward impact, the youth, which are the dividends of the continent, are one of the main actors, so that we had to empower it, at least to give them the opportunity to turn the unemployability issues that we are looking in the continent into job creators. So we use the convening power of the UN University to bring the different actors which have experiences on ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship. We are talking here on institutions like AfriLab, which is the umbrella association of technology and innovation hubs in the continent, consisting of almost 300 tech hubs in the continent. In each country you will have a tech hub present in AfriLab. So that is the place where youth are going to develop innovation. If you look, the innovation in the mobile sector, M-Pesa, which is driving the economy on Kenya and many other countries, that are innovation which take place in these technology and innovation hubs. There are also other actors like Venture Capital for Africa, which is also kind of business and venture to support to fund innovation in the continent. So we use the convening power of the United Nations University to bring these different actors to create an ecosystem where they talk to each others and also to talk with university, because when you are talking on innovation, the role of university and research is also quite important. One concrete example is a project that we call Green Innovation, Youth and Women Green Innovation and Entrepreneurship, where we are addressing 5 sectors when we are talking on green innovation: renewable energy, waste management, water management, climate action, and smart agricultures, where with all these stakeholders, we will then design an incubation program where we will select 30 youth in the continents and we will give them some seed funding through the IDSC. The Pan-African University is also partner in this project, and throughout the project, a period of almost 6 months, they will come out after 6 months with climate solution, which will be ready to be taken up for potential funding investor in the next step. So that is a short example to show how we use our convening power to bring the different actors working in the ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship to support green innovation and climate action in the continent.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tam. Can you share that?
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for inviting the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa to this one. I'm from the African Climate Policy Center of the UN Economic Commission for Africa. We are doing a lot of things in the area of youth, encouraging youth innovation, youth entrepreneurship, and research. I just give you a few examples. Every year before the COP in October, we organize something called the Climate Change and Development in Africa Conference, and where the second or the third day is normally dedicated to Climate Information Services, CIS Day. And during that time, we organize something called the Solutions Forum, where we encourage young people, youth entrepreneurs, to come up with some solutions, some ideas of how you solve, as we rightly say, how you could contribute to solving or having innovative climate action. And then we give prizes on that. And I think that is very important because it really does help us to encourage the youth to be more engaging in thinking about out of the box about solutions. But the most important one, I think, is our Climate Research for Development program. It's called the CR4D program. We came about with this program because we recognize that in the IPCC process, which is based on consensus research, there was very limited research from Africa. And therefore, the IPCC reports cannot really represent Africa that way because it's missing. So we came up with a program about the Climate Research for Development program with initial funding from UK FCDO through our program called the Weather and Climate Information Services for Africa program. And we engaged the African Academy of Science, which is based in Kenya, to be the research manager. And we were issuing grants of around $150,000, $200,000 to young researchers in academic institutions across Africa to promote innovative research on finding climate solutions. And in fact, in the first round that I just completed, we supported 21 researchers. And I'm glad to say that the majority of them were women, young women. And one of the top ones was a young woman, Dr. Stella, who came up with a very innovative way of producing organic fertilizer, and that research has really moved on. And many of the young people there who did the research have actually moved. We now need to go to the next phase of resource mobilization and partnerships with like-minded institutions who also see this idea as a way of going forward to get more young people involved in innovative research, and through that innovative research, coming on with innovative solutions, which are what we need for climate action on the continent. But I must also finish by saying that in addition to promoting this innovation and research, we also need to capacitate young people in understanding the complexities and the nuances of climate change, negotiations, and so on. And we have developed a very comprehensive program on training young people on these complex issues, on the negotiations, and also on training young people from the countries, young lawyers, who become the next generation of negotiators. And we think that is also important because it is an innovative approach on how you deal with climate change. Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And we will come back to this because I think both speakers have actually highlighted quite a number of examples of innovation. that has already emerged from the African continent. And as both of you were speaking, it does make me realise that the same sorts of things, if not already offered through, for example, economic commissions of ECLAC and ESCAP, we should be trying to build those bridges between the economic commissions and the UN, and then also to see the sorts of opportunities that might be available from the UNU to our other regions. So thank you for that. But now to move to our youth leaders' perspectives. And so I'll go back to the question again, what does the organisation you represent do in relation to climate action? And I'll give the first, and we'll go in the ACP, the way in which we describe ourselves. And so to Africa, to Mr. Dami Lola Hamid Balogun. Is that good? Now, you're quite a special person. You're the co-founder and chief executive officer of Youth Sustainable Development Network in Nigeria, representing Yango. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, senior colleagues. Thanks for taking our time to listen to this conversation at a crucial time such as this. My name is Damilola Hamid Balogun. I'm a lawyer, 25 years old, from Nigeria. I'm very much passionate about social impact, particularly youth development, because these are like real-life dealings I had to face growing up as a young person. So I'm still a young person though, but I mean, just seeing the way things are as far as my community is concerned and wanting to address this thing is why I decided to co-found the Youth Sustainable Development Network. Essentially, what we do at the Youth Sustainable Development Network is to engage young people as far as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is concerned. And so we do this in 3 phases. 1, education, because I understand that when we know better, we are able to do better. So awareness is key. So at the end of the day, we try as much as possible to educate younger people, educate secondary school students about the Sustainable Development Goals, which at the end of the day, they can begin to see themselves as future policy analysts, future politicians, and even future decision makers as far as the SDG is concerned, because it touches not only on the present, but also on the future. Essentially, again, we do policy recommendations. So we have annual conferences where we get to work with young people across the African continent to get their key insights on pressing developmental issues like climate change, sustainable agriculture, and even no poverty. At the end of the day, we try as much as possible to collate all of those, their thoughts, and then come to conferences like this to showcase some of the works that we are doing. We understand that we do not have access to the negotiation room right now, but I think it's a work in progress. I think 10 years before now, it was even rare for young people to have access to events like this. But right now, the narrative is changing. We would not stop until we're able to get our voices heard in the actual negotiation room and represent what we actually demand our future to be. Thirdly, we go as far as implementing grassroots projects. So there is need to build consciousness for action. A lot of times, the world would probably even be better now if we had more people taking action. So at the end of the day, as a youth-led organization, we go as far as raising funds to actually implement grassroots projects. Just last year, we were able to raise $5,000 to assist local farmers in Lagos, Nigeria. So what we did is that we understood they were having the issue of intense declined water supply on their farmland in Lagos, particularly Ekpe, Lagos, Nigeria. And so what we did as young people was to raise funding and then support this solution. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times they use generators, which is very costly and which is not environmentally friendly. So what we did was to engage a solar irrigation company, and then we paid for the management of the solar panels, the solar panel equipment itself, as well as the training for these farmers to be able to use this equipment to promote sustainable agriculture within their geographical location. At the end of the day, as I speak to you, this solution has assisted these farmers to increase their income by 60%, because that has cut on the expenses they spend on fossil fuel to power their generator. It has also helped them to increase by 70% their farming output. This is a solution that is designed by young people. This is a solution that is implemented by young people. And so that is what we stand for at the Youth Sustainable Development Network. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and for providing, a very real example where it is actually delivering socio-economic benefits to the country, and really from, at the grassroots level. And it does show the innovation and the intelligence of our young people that we mustn't underestimate or undervalue. And if I may now move to my part of the world, the Pacific, the blue Pacific continent, my alphabet's all wrong. I moved to C, the Caribbean. Apologies, it's in my notes. So, Mr. Adeline Pierre, you're with the Haitian Youth Biodiversity Network.
Okay, thank you everyone, and thank you for the invitation. So my name is Adeline Pierre, and I'm from Haiti. So I'm representing the Haitian Youth Biodiversity Network, which is a national youth association working on climate change, biodiversity, and desertification. So I'm excited to be here today in this panel to talk about what I'm doing in Haiti. As you may know, Haiti is the most vulnerable country in Latin American Caribbean region. Over the last 35 years, the country suffering from the impact of climate change, which is hurricane, drought, etc. So which is affect young people who represent more than 55% of the population. So in my organization, what we are doing is first of all, I want to highlight three points. So the first one is we organize the local conference on youth on climate change, which is annual conference that brings together young people from across the country to strengthen their capacity and then to give them opportunity to come up with innovative solutions to address climate change. And through this conference, we have a youth declaration, youth position paper, that where young people have some recommendation to the government and to civil society, the organization from the civil society. And also, actually, we have a project which is Waste for Oceans, which is a project that allows young people in Haiti to collect plastic waste and also to collect data as well, and also to transform them into the art object. This is a big project for us because it creates green job for young people, for the poorest people in Haiti. The third activity is we have initiative that Haitian Hack. Haitian Hack is a hackathon that brings people from Haiti and also in the Caribbean region to come up with innovative solutions. And this year, the winner of this hackathon will be in India for the Unleash Innovation Lab, which is a big event that brings together young people from all the world. So yeah, this is all I want to share with you. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Adeline, for that and for sharing with us what your organisation does and some real examples of activities at the policy level in terms of declarations and then at the practice level. And so now moving to the P, the blue Pacific continent, and that's where I'm from. And I'm so pleased to be able to introduce Mr. Lavetana Langi. Oh, Seru, except it's easy to just call him Langi, and that's how I know him. But Langi's the Regional Policy Coordinator at the Pacific Islands Climate Action Network, or PICAN. And so if you could just tell us a bit about the organisation and what you do, Langi. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Bulavinaka. My name is Lavet Nalangi, as Christelle had pronounced. No. I represent the Pacific Islands Climate Action Network, which is the regional umbrella body for civil society organization that works on climate change in the Pacific. Like many other young people who are here at the COP space, we wear multiple hats. So I do represent a few other organizations, including the Alliance for Future Generations and the Next Generation Climate Board of the Global Green Grants Fund. And the work that I do and that the organization do is around policy influencing support, so building the capacity of our members, particularly young people. Within PCAN, the Secretariat, we are all under 30 years of age, and we coordinate the whole Pacific civil society work. Most of the strong Pacific voices on climate change are young people in the Pacific, and most of the ideas and the solutions that are coming to the global level are from young people, including the campaign to seek an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, which is now being supported by the Caribbean, the Pacific, and Africa, came from a group of 27 young law students back at the Pacific. And so we do capacity building, we do, through some of the other organizations, provide direct support to our members. With the Next Generation Climate Board in particular, the organization mobilizes funds, and through the board, which is youth-centered, is able to then grant that out to youth organizations, particularly from the Global South, so that they're able to access accessible, flexible funding, so that they're able to drive the work that they do in the communities. The real struggles are in the community. Most of these communities do not have direct access to the support that they need. And so through the work that we do, we are able to then link that gap and plug the gap. And so that's the work that we do, policy, capacity building, and also around coordination in the region. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I think all speakers have really highlighted some excellent and very concrete examples of innovation and of the potential of our youth in making contributions to how we address the climate crisis. And in fact, there are quite a number of similarities between our youth leaders and our youth organizations from Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. And I hope that this is not the first and last time that we come together like this, but that we can actually see the potential of building a coalition amongst our youth leaders and amongst our youth in terms of trying to find those solutions that we need to find fast, as we live in this fast-changing, quite difficult world, that we experience now and that will get more difficult in the future. And so I'll move now to the second round of questions, and we're halfway through the side event, so I think we're doing quite well for time. But I'll give each of the panelists 3 minutes to speak, and then we might have a little bit of an opportunity for discussion. And so this particular part comes in there's two parts, 2 questions. So how do you see youth contributing to innovations in addressing the climate change crisis? And there's been some answers, some of your answers have already partially answered this, but you might want to elaborate. And the second question, my second question is, are there specific examples of youth empowerment and innovation that you can share from your region that could be replicated? And I think the last part of that question is something that I'm particularly interested in. And so I'll again get institutional perspectives on this, and I'm sure there are much more examples than have already been given. And so, Dr. Tambo, I'll let you speak or answer this question or these questions first.
Maybe just before, so we have also Dr. as expert remote.
Oh, what's his name? Amazir, I'm sorry, I've actually ignored your opportunity to make a short intervention as well, just to describe the organisation and what your organisation does on climate action. So you have several minutes to contribute. Please go ahead. We can't hear you. He's got his microphone.
If you can unmute on Zoom.
Yes, if you, would you be able to unmute your microphone? We cannot hear you. We can see you clearly, but we cannot hear you. Well, perhaps while we're just waiting to fix that technical glitch, we will perhaps allow our speaker joining us virtually to answer all three questions when we've fixed the technical issues. So if I could just turn to you, Dr. Tambo. Would you like me to go through the questions again, or are you good? All right. So two questions. How do you see youth contributing to innovations in addressing the climate change crisis? And then, are there specific examples of youth empowerment and innovation that you can share from your region that could be replicated?
Okay, I think the first question is a bit similar to the other one. So, but I think it gives also the opportunity to share another interesting project that we are conducting at the UNU, which go also cross-continental, because we are working with the ASEAN Pacific. So with the Foundation Avina in Guatemala, where we are working. IT is one of the project partners in Guatemala, in Latin America, and in Africa we have 4 countries: Zambia, Niger, Uganda, and Madagascar. And what we are trying to do in this project is to bring youth in the global stocktake process. So we have a kind of, all of the countries have a commitment, at least next year will be the evaluation of how the countries are performing in achieving the Paris Agreement. And what we see is a process in African countries in the global south, which is mainly managed at the ministerial level. So, and we were thinking with this project, how can we bring youth from the entrepreneurial perspective to support their countries to fulfill their achievement with regard to the Paris Agreement. So we developed in this project 4 courses around the global stocktake process, so monitoring of the global stocktake and climate finances, that we integrate in what we call an entrepreneurial curriculum. So the youth are taking over 2 months of the 4 courses, but while they are taking the courses, they are also going through master classes on how they can design innovative solutions, how they can build team, and after the 2 months, they go into an incubation process. So that is an example of the project where we bring the African continent and the Caribbean, the Pacific together, and how we bring youth with an entrepreneurial perspective to contribute on the Paris Agreement. So that is one thing. Another project that we are currently working on, which is also quite interesting, is to bring the innovation and entrepreneurship in schools. Because what we realize in many of our programs is that the entrepreneurs that we take in all of our incubation program are the ones who were already exposed in school with some responsibility, either speakers or so being in clubs. So, and what we are trying is to design climate action labs in school, that we design some specific set of experiment with local materials that we combine with STEM, and also the courses that the teachers have to, in physics, for example, how can you design a micro dam and bringing the concept of physics with a real experiment. In this sense, we are strengthening the leadership and entrepreneurial capacity with a strong focus on women, girls in tech, so that later on we are building a nursery of future innovators and climate entrepreneurs. So that are 2 projects that we are, the second one we are currently working on that, and the other one is how we bring also youth in the ministry process, how to support the country. So I think that are 2 examples that I can present once again to show how youth could contribute. So when we are talking on so we are living more or less in the global world. So, and I left, let's say, my home country for almost 24 years. So, meaning I'm in Germany for quite long already. So, don't have so much experiences of youth, let's say, concrete youth activities, what is going on in Cameroon. But I think we have here Yungo and further youth network which can maybe give a better statement of what is going on maybe in Africa. And Nigeria is a neighbor country, may have a concrete example of what could be the contribution of youth in Africa. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tambo, and again giving some excellent examples and demonstrating how already UNU is working across the OACPS regions and countries. Dr. Morphle, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Young people are extremely innovative and entrepreneurial. Yeah, we keep seeing it. We've seen it from our Climate Research for Development program that I mentioned. We've seen it from our Solutions Forum that we do during the climate change and so on. But what I think is the issue is, and we haven't been able to figure out how to address it, is how do you go from innovation to implementation? How do you support young people with intellectual property rights? For example, they come up with innovative ideas, and there is no mechanism where they could be supported to translate those ideas into registration of their patents and so on, because it costs money to. They come up with ideas that sound economically viable, but the investments are not coming. You've seen young people come up with innovative energy solutions, for example, like with biogas in rural areas. That makes a lot of economic sense, but the investment doesn't come. So I think that through all these initiatives that we do, and it is also still a challenge for us, and it is in a way painful, because we call young people to come and show us your innovations, your solutions. They come, they demonstrate wonderful ideas, but they have no capability to take that to registration of intellectual property rights, to mobilization of resources. And I think it will be good through these kind of exchanges to see how can we work together to find a way that these young people, when they come up with these innovative ideas and innovations and so on, they could be supported in that process to go to intellectual property rights, to investments, to then actually impact through implementation. Otherwise, we spend a lot of time seeing new innovations, hearing new ideas and so on, but many years down the line, we still don't see those innovations going out there to implementation. And I think that is where we really need to find out how to get the young people to do it. We've seen already the mechanisms through which we can give exposure to these ideas, but some of the initiatives that colleagues here have mentioned, what Eric has said, what I've said about what we do, but the question is how do we then take those forward to beyond being, wow, great idea too. This is support for you, then this is take it forward. These are the investors who have the money now, who can put into taking your innovation to implementation. I think that is what will really be good to do. But I think it will also be good to scale, right? We need to take scale forward. And I've mentioned about this Solutions Forum thing that we do. We are all sitting here from an institutional perspective. Maybe we can start thinking together, how do we now work as institutions to take our Solutions Forum thing to a bigger scale, so that in the next CCDA meeting, we already have a bigger way of reaching out to more young people to say, come and show us your innovations. And then we will see who will have, because we have judges who judge the innovations. But in the meantime, we'll also brainstorm between ourselves to see, once we identify these ones that have really come up with wonderful ideas, how could they then be supported, or who can support them to take it forward? And I think that is really the key. So we need to do the scale, but we also need to do the transition from innovation to implementation. Yeah.
No, thank you very much for that, and I think for raising some things that we need to do. You know, and as you say, it's all very well to talk about research and innovation, encouraging our youth entrepreneurs, but then actually being able to concretize some of their innovative ideas, you know, into investments that actually are enduring and lasting, and give them back something for the contributions that they make in terms of their creativity. Look forward to actually furthering discussions, and I think, in part, I think the youth will have some of the answers to that as well. And there may be some successful youth entrepreneurs that could also, you know, provide their experiences to youth on innovations, to implementation, to scale. So if we could now move to our youth leaders' perspectives on these two questions. And so we'll move to Africa. Damilola.
All right, thank you very much for the wonderful question. So essentially, how to promote youth innovation, particularly on developmental issues like climate change. So I think, first of all, it is essential to put in perspective that young people are the trustees of prosperity of any country. They are not only strong, they have visions and they have the ability to drive change at a level. While that is being established, it is also important to bear in mind that I come from Nigeria, and in Nigeria, there are over 250 million people, as reported by the last census report. Out of these 250 million persons, there are over 100 million that are young people. And out of these 100 million, over 60 million are unemployed. As at 2020, the population of Kenya was at 55 million. That's to say that a country is not employed, which is quite pathetic. So to drive innovation at this stage, I think two things are very essential. First of all, it's important to promote intergenerational conversations such as this, speaking with experts, speaking with entrepreneurs, speaking with young, so the youth leaders are able to learn and they are able to drive their innovation at a level. So the second one rather, is working with young people at the grassroots. So young people are generally positioned to understand how their society works. And so when we have institutions like the African Development Bank wanting to drive change at a level, it is of course very clear that the African Development Bank, there is a little to which they can do as to going into the grassroots very much. So of course working with young people, helping them to build a case example of successful projects in a good way, it's a way of promoting their innovation, spurring the innovation and ensuring that whatever project they are doing brings about fulfillment, not for just themselves, but of course for their society at large. Already there is a problem around regulatory frameworks, and then a lot of times people or particular investors don't trust young people with money and finance to like undo certain projects. But of course, to ensure that their innovation does not die, to ensure that these projects they have in mind comes into place, there has to be proper guidance from experts, from established entrepreneurs, from public policy analysts, from all stakeholders to properly guide and then organize projects that can as well ensure that they understand how these things goes. Because speaking from experience, I understand that the EU, the African Union, they have a system as to which they incorporate young people into systems. So on Monday, I was in a meeting with the Prime Minister of Netherlands because he had a closed-door meeting with young people. So I was opportune to be there. And so one thing he told me is that as far as the Netherlands is concerned, they have two young negotiators in the negotiating rooms that are not necessarily negotiating, but they are seeing how things are. How many African countries are doing that? Practically none. So we don't have to always wait for time to calm down, organize projects, but things that we're doing, it is essential that we carry along young people. And this is the only way we can achieve that sustainable and a resilient future, and even the developmental goal at the level as far as the African continent is concerned, which I think has huge potential but has not lived up to it. And hopefully in the nearest future, this is one thing that I want to do, and I'm hoping that we all can work together to push Africa to its true potential. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think a very inspiring and energetic contribution to this, and I would completely agree with you that we need to talk more and be inclusive and really start to think about how we are inclusive. And as you've just mentioned, how do we actually include our youth leaders in every element of the process of how we address these crises? And I think in Haiti, you know, the fact that you take all of the Rio conventions together is something that we also need to think about, because biodiversity and climate are interrelated, and the desertification convention as well is becoming as relevant to other parts of the world as it is and has been to Africa. And so we'll move to you, Adeline, for your answers. Thank you.
Once again, thank you. Regarding that question, I would be brief. So would like to mention that for me, it's like to create safe space for young people, to create safe place where they can meaningfully engage, where they can come up with innovative solutions. In the Caribbean region, we don't have like kind of like space for young people to work together and like to come up with innovative solution. And secondly, I think it's really important to young people to have access to resources like to finance, because if we have like innovative solution, we don't have money like to implement this project or solution, it's gonna be a big problem. So I think it's really important for young people to have access to resources, including trainings and also finance, like to come up innovative solutions. And with that, I would like to mention that we in the Caribbean, as I mentioned before, we have like hackathon like that bring together young people to come up with innovative solutions. So yeah, I think it's the best way like to start working with young people to like give them opportunity to like come up with innovative solution, innovative idea to address climate change at national and regional level. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And I think that you really, some of your comments really speak to Dr. Mofo's comments about this issue of innovation to implementation and then to scaling. I do understand that the speakers are working now for our speaker online, and I'm really conscious as well that we're running out of time, but that we only have limited time, for your intervention. If you could, I'll move to you, sir, and if you could answer very quickly those questions, because I would like to give our leader from the Pacific the opportunity to also answer the questions that I asked. But I'll now just revert to our speaker online to just provide some comments. You have the floor. We're still unable to hear you. If you could, have you unmuted your microphone? I'm terribly sorry. I really am. We had been told that the technical problem had been rectified, and I really must apologize for this, but it's beyond my control. So please accept our apologies. If I could just move to Langi for the reactions to those questions. Langi, please.
Thank you, Christelle. And I think the panel have addressed the questions. So I'm going to answer this question differently. And just to state that if you're coming to COP as a government, as a UN agency or any other organization to ask the question around how do we engage youth, then you're asking the wrong crowd. You'll need to go back to your country and ask the youth in your country how to engage with them. They have the answers. They know how best to engage with them and the processes that works for them. The other thing is, for young people, it's really things like creating spaces. Creating spaces is foremost and fundamental to bring their voices together so that they're able to articulate and share the solutions and the ideas that they have. And for some, it's about safe spaces. For young women, for LGBTQI, for young people with disabilities, it's about creating accessible and safe spaces for them to have their ideas heard. The other is around listening. We talk more, but we don't listen more. So I think for engaging with young people, you really need to be deliberate and to listen to the kind of ideas that they're bringing to the table. The third one that I'm hearing as well is around decentralizing information. Access to information for many young people is a challenge, even in this digital world. They are still struggling to find out where can we access funding to do this, to implement a climate project. Where can we get help from a politician to shift this work around policy change? And then also, just the final sort of recommendation that I have is around mentorship. You know, mentorship which is not one-sided, but mentorship where young people are teaching the elder generation, you know, the person, and you know, it's working two ways. So young people, you know, they have a lot of ideas and innovative solutions that they bring to the table that leaders can learn and take on board, but they also need to learn from our elders and our leaders about how they can further build and enhance their capacity to then go back to the communities and shift the work and you know, bring about the kind of transformational change that's needed. So I think those are kind of you know, thoughts that I have to share around that question. Thank you, Christelle.
Well, thank you very much, Langi, and I think that you've made some, again, very sensible and robust recommendations. In fact, I've really enjoyed this, if I could call it a conversation, and a first conversation. I think what it has raised is that as organisations, there is a lot of scope for us to work closely together on common interests and ambitions to involve our youth more, because they do have so much to offer, in terms of addressing and resolving these situations that we find ourselves in today because of the climate crisis, because of the biodiversity crisis, and because of our ocean and our islands and our continents that are in crisis. I do hope that this first conversation is not the last. I do hope that we'll be able to bring our youth from the 4 regions of Africa, so our 47 members of Sub-Saharan Africa together. I do hope that we'll be able to bring those 4 regions together with our Pacific and Caribbean young members of the family, so that you're able to coalesce around issues and to exchange and to become that force to be reckoned with in terms of what the Global South can offer for the Global South. I think that that is extremely important, and we do need to, as we know, start to really help ourselves. And in fact, by helping ourselves, we will help others, and we will help to save planet Earth and to save humanity. And I think many of the solutions rest with us from the Global South. And we are at the front line, and we feel the brunt of the impacts. And so we live with those, and we have to find ways of living with those and adapting to those and mitigating. And so I would like to offer that out of this conversation, we endeavour to continue the conversation, that we endeavour to aim to include our youth leaders and our youth in all aspects and all elements of this process of rebuilding and reinstating the blue planet and making sure that humanity is able to live free and worthwhile lives. I think if we can commit to that, and if we can look at more considered opportunities between now and COP28, where we can actually have, and I think as Langi has said, that we can have opportunities, there can be webinars where we actually talk together and listen to each other and learn from each other and come up with solutions to be able to really move forward. I think, you know, Dr. Mo, for your comments about the challenges of taking innovation to implementation, to scaling it, and, you know, and this is for our young people, to give them the opportunities to really contribute and be productive parts of our populations. Then that could be a few small but concrete steps. And I would very much commit and like to being part of that. And I'm sure as well, Professor, you and your organisation and organisations across Africa and between Africa and your Pacific and Caribbean extended family would be willing to do such. I hope that I speak for all of us on the panel. And I hope that those that have witnessed and listened to us in the last hour would agree. We're 2 minutes over time. I don't know if we're going to get kicked off the stage, but I wonder whether there is anybody from the audience that would like to make any comments, 30-second comments. I invite anyone from the audience who has listened carefully to make any comments. If you could just indicate. Nobody at this stage. So we're 2 minutes over time, but I again thank each and every one of you. And I hope that this isn't the last time that we come together. And I hope that the African, Caribbean and Pacific regions can come together. Because remember, 79 of us actually can have a much louder voice in these spaces, such as here at this COP27 and in future COPs. And that we need to, and we cannot ignore the 60% of the population of Africa who are youth, and 20% of the population of the Pacific who are youth, and 20% of the population of the Caribbean who are youth. We can't do that. It's irresponsible. Thank you, everybody, and good evening.
Excellency, you can come for pictures.
Thank you very much.